Hi there, I'm Christine Zips, and today we are delighted to have a special guest with us for our Fireside Chat series, Dr. Neil Bauman. We're going to be talking today about mostly about musical ear syndrome, as well as hearing loss issues in general, Meniere's disease, and tinnitus, and all sorts of fascinating things. So we're really pleased to have him with us. And I'd like to start by sharing his little bit of his bio as his introduction. So Neil Bauman, Ph.D., or Dr. Neil, is a hearing loss coping skills specialist, researcher, author, and speaker on issues pertaining to hearing loss. No stranger to hearing loss himself, he's lived with a lifelong severe hereditary hearing loss. He became an excellent speech reader at an early age and practices numerous ways to successfully cope with being hard of hearing in a hearing world. Dr. Neil did not let his hearing loss stop him from achieving what he wanted to do. He earned several degrees in fields ranging from forestry to ancient astronomy. We got his Ph.D. Love to delve into that one day. And theology, Th.D. Later, he trained as a hearing loss coping skills specialist. He's director of the Center for Hearing Loss Help. He provides education, support, and counsel to hard of hearing people through his books, articles, e-zine, presentations, and personal contact. People the world over seek his advice and wisdom on matters relating to hearing loss and how to cope successfully with this disability. Dr. Neil is a prolific writer on subjects related to hearing loss and other ear conditions. He's the author of 11 books and more than 1,000 articles. Some of his books and articles have been translated into other languages. A dynamic speaker, Dr. Neil travels throughout the USA and Canada, presenting at local, state, provincial, national, and international conferences and conventions on topics related to hearing loss. I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Neil today to discuss his work and especially musical ear syndrome. So welcome, Dr. Neil. We're so pleased to have you with us. And if we might just get right into it and get started with, considering your varied background, academic background, what specifically led you into the field of hearing loss?
Well, that was a good question. As you know, I was born with a severe hearing loss, and I grew up just as a normal, hard of hearing person, if there's such a thing. And so I was just busy doing my career work. And then about 30 years ago, I was sort of betwixt and between jobs. And I got this letter right out of the blue saying, we are putting on a course. This is in Alberta in Canada. We're putting on a course on teaching people that are good speech readers how to teach speech reading and coping strategies for hard of hearing people. Would you be interested? It sounded good to me. So I took this course and I started teaching speech reading and coping skills classes. And then I realized that because I lived in the central Alberta where it gets to 40 below in the winter, a lot of the little old ladies didn't want to come out in blizzards to go to our meetings. I couldn't understand that. And so I thought I got the great idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to distill all this information I've got in these training classes, plus all my lifetime of living as a hard of hearing person, and I would write a book on it. And I gave it the grandiose title, Everything You Wanted to Know About Your Hearing Loss, but were afraid to ask because you knew you wouldn't hear the answers anyway.
I love it, love it. Great, and I know we can talk for weeks on this, but we love that introduction, and thank you for that. And that brings me to my next question. What is speech reading?
Speech reading is, the old term was called lip reading, but speech reading takes lip reading. In other words, you're watching a person's mouth, but you're not only watching their lips, you're watching their tongue, their teeth, their facial expressions, hand expressions if you're using your hands. Speech reading would even include if you were talking to a person, they're standing there tapping their foot impatiently on the floor. What you're doing is you're taking all the clues that you can get that give you an idea of what the person's talking about and put that together with the residual hearing you have so that you can understand what the person is saying.
I can see how that would be very handy. I had noticed that with with my own mother, who had diminished hearing, but she would watch the lips. I don't even think she realized she was doing that, but that could be very handy. So, I mean, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
And
somebody wrote a book, and it was called, or an article, it was called "You Can Hear Better with Your Glasses On."
I'm so sure. I mean, because all of our senses interact, right? They kind of support one another. And like I have diminished eyesight, and as a result, my hearing is like sometimes I wish I couldn't hear as well as I do, but I believe that our other senses kind of kick in to help support when there's one that's kind of challenged.
They
But
really do,
yeah.
because I say my eyes are my ears, and my ears are just things to hang my glasses on.
There you go. That's a good way to put it. I like that. So, well, as you know, you have a wonderful sense of humor, which is handy in all things. So, and I understand that hearing loss can come from a variety of different areas. And in your work, do you find like a good place to start is to determine the particular cause for your client's own situation? Like, I mean, that's kind of obvious, but I guess I'm wanting to lead you into kind of your process of peeling the onion of working with your clients.
Well, I always do something that apparently medical doctors don't do, and that is I ask them questions. They all tell me, "You keep asking me questions. My doctors never ask. They let you say, 1 minute worth of stuff, and then that's it. And then they write a prescription or whatever." I typically will talk to a person for maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours. I try to understand what their problem is. And I always want to go back to the root. What happened just before you got this problem? And it could be they were in a car accident. It could be that they were in a concert. It could be they took a particular drug, or whatever. And once I understand what it is, then I say, this is what I think your problem is. And
Exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that and that you take that approach that's so refreshing. And it just seems that in the traditional sense of medicine, that they're just have so many patients. They're probably conscious, well, if I ask that question, then I'm going to need to give them another 10 minutes. And unfortunately, they're so rushed, it seems, and that they are so busy addressing the symptoms rather than looking at the causes. So to me, that's just intuitive. Somebody said, my arm hurts. I said, well, take an aspirin. Like, what made your arm hurt? Let's start there. So,
yeah,
that's a good one.
always look for the underlying cause.
Right?
And if you fix that, you don't have to worry about the symptoms. They're just going to go away when you've treated the cause.
You know what? What a concept! But it almost seems like they can't make a lot of money going that way. I mean, if they can throw a drug at it, maybe they can make some money at it. But I'm sorry, I'm a little jaded about that. But
If it,
there's a
yeah,
time and place for all types of medicine. Believe me.
right. Well, if a doctor throws a drug at you, duck.
Exactly. Yes, I'm very pleased to have reached my young age and not being on any prescriptions for about 2 decades, 3 decades, and lots of supplements, but not drugs per se. And was wondering, would you say that there's a connection between hearing loss and dementia?
Well, they've been doing a lot of research on that. Franklin and Baltimore in the Johns Hopkins started doing research. And a lot of hard of hearing people did not like that. How about people like me that have been hard of hearing from birth? We say, you mean I'm going to be nuts when I get older just because I've got a hearing loss? And it seems that that's not the case. But if you start losing your hearing during middle age and you do nothing about it, you don't get a hearing aid, you don't go and get your hearing test, then a very strong connection, a correlation between the hearing loss you have at middle age and the onset of dementia later on.
And
If you correct your hearing by getting hearing aids, then that doesn't happen. So that's a good thing. Always look after your hearing. People that have had long-standing hearing loss, it doesn't matter, because I like to think that I'm not demented, at least not too badly, And I don't wear my hearing aids very much at all.
That's so good to know, and I would imagine that when I saw that with my own mother, that she hated being in group situations where they're having a meal, and she could hear them talking, but she couldn't understand what they were saying. And she said, "I don't want to be the one at the table saying, 'Huh? What? What did you say? What did she say?'" So she did the lip reading and pretended and tried to answer as best as she could to get by, because she didn't want to make them feel bad about that. But I would think that if you can't hear, that would lead to isolationism, and it would just kind of take you out of the social aspect that's so important for us to have contact with others. So I would think that,
Very, very much
and
so.
that leads to
You're left out.
depression. And
One of my coping strategies is I don't expect to hear. If we go to a family gathering, I can't follow, because you never know who's going to be talking next. 2 or 3 people are talking at once, and all I hear is sound. It's not in English. And in those situations, quite often what I'll do is I'll just leave and go into a separate room. And I always come prepared with books to write, articles to write, journals to read. And so I'm productive, even though I'm left out.
there you go. I mean, that's really good. And we're going to be getting into coping strategies toward the end of our talk today. And just for purposes of people listening in, just so you know, we'll be providing some links to supporting information if you'd like to know more, how to contact Dr. Neil, etc., in the comments section. I was led to know about your work. I probably should have led with this, but we have a dear friend who's very hard of hearing, and she was experiencing hearing music and voices in her head, and she was very concerned about that, thought she was having hallucinations, and her family, they weren't real patient. I mean, because it's frustrating, because she was almost to the point of being frightened when this happens. But long story short, we were led to your work by one of her relatives who found out about it. And she said, "Oh my gosh, have you ever heard of musical ear syndrome?" And that led me to read about you. And I got your book of Phantom Voices, an excellent book. So in reading in that book, Dr. Neil, I came upon the term audio frequency induction loop systems, or hearing loop systems. And I understand that these have been around for quite a while. And it's I understand that they can be installed in a home environment or office or church, various venues, to help hard of hearing people hear better. And I just wondered, how do those work?
Well, hearing loop systems are very simple. If you are technical, you know what a transformer is. It has 2 coils of wire. One is called the primary, and that's, you might think, as the transmitting antenna, and the second coil is the receiving one. When current flows through a wire, it produces a magnetic field around the wire. And that magnetic field varies with your voice, the volume of your voice. So you've got a varying magnetic field, softer, louder as we're talking. And if you were wearing a hearing aid that has a T-coil or telecoil in it, those magnetic lines of force cut through the wire of your T-coil and induce an equal and opposite current, and then your hearing aid amplifies it. Now, I have this office looped, I have my living room looped, so if I want to listen to the TV, instead of turning the volume wide open and then saying, "Why don't they make TVs with louder amplifiers?" because I can't hear them, all I do is switch my T-coils of my hearing aids to T-coil mode, and I hear my TV right into my ears, just like somebody's talking into both ears at the same time. And it's just beautiful, clear sound.
That is so interesting and good to know. And I can hear our audience thinking, where do I get one of those? And so we'll be providing some more information. In addition, you cover that in your books as well. So
I have it, but I sell the Cadillac system. Actually, I call it the Ferrari now. I used to sell the Cadillac.
There you go.
And then we designed a new one, and that's
vroom vroom. I like it.
But I have been using loops forever. I've actually been using loops for about 43 years now. Actually, it's more than that now. Most people think the loops are a new technology. Actually, it's very old, but it works wonderfully.
Interesting. I can't even envision what they look like. Is it something that you can see when they're installed, like in your home? If someone comes in and says, "What's that?" or what do they look like?
Well, it looks just like a little gizmo box. The loop driver is just a little gizmo box that attaches to your TV.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and then the loop itself is just a wire that you run around the room. You might run around the room under your carpet, under the floor. If you have a crawl space under your floor, like I have in this place, I just put the loop under there, so there's no way you can even see it.
Oh,
I mean,
that's great.
you can put it above your ceiling as well.
Sounds very handy. I think every home and office should come with that. Wouldn't that be good?
Yeah,
So,
and if you want a very simple one, instead of looping your whole room, maybe you are like me and you have your favorite chair. And if all you ever do is listen to the TV from that chair, you can use a little loop pad that's only about 16 inches square, and just put it on the floor under your chair, or sit on it, put it under the cushion, put it behind your head, and now you've got your own little private loop. And of
one
course, the wire has to run back to your loop driver that's hooked up to your TV.
Oh, that sounds great. I mean, what a wonderful gift idea for those of us to help those of us who are a little challenged in that area. And I was wondering, how widespread are these hearing loop systems in the United States? Are there some states who have more than others? Are they very well known or used, as far as you know?
They're getting more and more well known. New loops are being installed every day. And I'm one of the loop installers, so I know a lot of loop installers and what they're doing. They're still not well known. My little town here, we've got, we had the second highest per capita of churches. And I just found out 3 weeks ago that one of the churches is looped. I'd asked around. Nobody knew about it.
Oh, that's amazing. It would be good to know more about the places that are, I would think, and even get testimonials from people who have experienced them, to help. I mean, that's why I want to do this with you, and thank you for agreeing to do
Well,
this.
there is a website that lists all the looped venues in the U.S. So
Okay,
you can go there and look at your state and zoom in and find out exactly who has
great.
what.
Well, we'll provide that in the comments section to help people get more familiar with that. So I think, it might be good to draw this section to a close. I think we've done a really good broad brush of this type of subtopics here, scratching the surface. And we'll be coming into the next session talking about Meniere's disease and tinnitus and how drugs can be interacted and stuff. So thank you for sharing this information, Dr. Neil. And with this, we will end this segment and pick up with the other segment from here. Thank you.